Well, what we know, of course, is Australians have much busier lives and there's a lot more media fragmentation. So we have newspapers, we have online, we have mobile, we have iPad, and we have a myriad of niche publications, mainly in the web world. So one of the challenges, of course, is to get the eyeballs, to get people to read papers. And within that challenge, of course, is how do you define the content that's most appropriate? How do you delineate between what is a print product, what is an online product, what is mobile, and of course now what is an iPad? So that is a big challenge facing us. In all of this, in all of the fragmentation, in all of the rethinking of journalism, and in all of what we work through about what is the most appropriate content, one of the biggest challenges is what is the business model that underpins journalism. As some content moves to different platforms, whether it be online or mobile or perhaps increasingly this e-reader concept, how will we fund this journalism? At The Age in particular, we set out to fund journalism that produces investigations and some of the biggest hard-hitting national stories, Victorian stories and Melbourne stories every year, and in fact every week, if we can do it, every day, and it's costly. Much of our journalism takes time. We invest in major investigations that can take up to 3 months. How will we fund that in the future is probably the biggest question facing our industry. Well, within this, kind of mixed up mass fragmentation, all of the relationships are now up for grabs and need to be reconsidered, and the relationship is changing a lot. We must remember that a lot of journalism now, in some aspects of the web, is self-generated. So we have a concept that's emerging and coming at us quite quickly now, where some people believe that self-generated copy is of equal value. How do we as journalists confront that? What are the concepts that we fight back with? How valid is the self-generated content? I was quite taken by a presentation by Alan Rusbridger some while back, speaking in Europe at a conference, and he held up a pen and he said, journalism used to be like this. We used to tell our audience what we thought was important and what they should read, and he flipped around the pen and he said, and of course now they're telling us what's important, and it's a push-pull relationship. So what's really changing for us and what we need to be close to and feel and research and understand is how much should we push towards readers, in what way, on what platform, and how much should we pull? And the pull content, of course, is reader feedback, reader commentaries on blogs and websites, and increasingly in print. And I think the nature of the relationship is changing by giving a higher level of respect to reader-generated content. And at The Age, I think it's a higher level of respect for that content, but in the broader environment of more contextual, richer, sharper, hard-hitting journalism that matters. So in all of this, the relationship is changing quite significantly, quite fast, and is a matter where we're in Melbourne constantly researching it and trying to understand where, why, and what we need to do to respond. So when we think about responses to this changing market, what's The Age done in the new world, in the new space, in online and digital? Well, we'd like to think we've done a lot. We're putting a lot of energy into broadening and fine-tuning, refining theage.com.au. We came through a phase on The Age, the printed product, where we initially talked about volunteerism. Are there staff on the paper who would like to volunteer to write for and to comment for our websites? Now, of course, we say all staff. It's important that you all contribute in terms of reporting and analysis and commentary to our websites. And that's led to more content and our richer content. And allied to that, in this past couple of years, we've now entered the market, we think, in more aggressive ways, in more considered ways. An example is the launch of nationaltimes.com.au, which is a national commentary site featuring the very best commentary from the Fairfax network, led by The Age, led by the Sydney Morning Herald. We see it as a high-impact site. We're getting great feedback. It's full of commentary and other mechanisms where you can share content on social media, etc. But if I were to give you a sense of some of the ideas, what we're trying to do is do some mainstream ideas and then be bold and test ourselves and challenge ourselves to do some new things. Examples, we published Australia's first serialised piece of fiction to mobile phones, a 20 episode story that ran Monday to Friday for a month. and received very strong feedback. We met our objectives in our business case. We were very pleased with it. Recently, in thinking through the sort of confluence of issues that emerge when you think about websites versus, for example, Twitter and other social media, we were thinking, how should we cover AFL matches in a different way, in a more creative way? And so recently we launched From the Outer, a Twitter account where our reporters go into the bleachers at the grounds and they run running commentary on Twitter accounts on the match, on the crowd, on incidents at the ground, and then we consider taking some of that and reverse publishing it to theage.com.au on weekends. We think it's creative. We don't know if it's a winner, but what we do know is, in our sense of the world, we must try things that are different. We must challenge ourselves. We must be like the nimble players in the market, be open to ideas, be open to try something different. And of course, this is wrapped up and encapsulated in the internal debates within Fairfax about iPad and other e-readers. What is the ideal app? How do you attract an audience and retain them? The stickiness issue. And what I would say about that is I'm really pleased with the robust discussions we're having about that. Personally, I think I've downloaded the existing apps within the market. I've gone to Poland, Germany, America, Australasia, having a look at how people are exercising their opportunity to put forward really rich content for an app. And I think it's a bit like those .com days when lots of ideas get pushed out there quite quickly. Which one is the winner? Which one was the best concept? Which one builds an audience and can be sustained? Not quite clear yet, but in fact, in all of it, quite exciting. An exciting time to be a journalist. So of course, one of the big challenges is how do you talk to your staff? How do you engage them? How do you get them excited about the opportunities? In Melbourne, a couple of approaches that I've taken, and when I say I've taken, in fact, what I would say is we have taken as a group of senior editors, thinking it through, what are the smart ways to do this? The first is engagement, talking to your staff, talking to them about change. What is change? In Melbourne, I've adopted a bit of a line that change is now constant, and we are in a period where we don't change for a little while, then have a steady period and then change again. Change is constant. We're constantly talking about change. And that's a cultural shift that I've been working on with the senior editors at The Age to have more staff accept and understand. And within that process, when more staff do understand that, of course, you then have the opportunity to embrace them in more brainstorming sessions and more kind of intimate discussions about, for example, iPad apps or changes to print products versus online products. I think these are challenging times for our industry, challenging times to be a journalist, because having certainty on the basics of business models and products and audience, in the years that we had that, led to arguably times when we could focus more on the words and more on the investigations and more on the high impact journalism. Now we are loaded up with bigger issues about business decisions, bigger issues about platforms. But I think, and I have some confidence in this, I think what it's producing is a refined, more sophisticated debate about who we are, what we do, who we want to read our work and watch our work and view our work. What is a still image, what is a moving image? And in engaging staff in these debates in Melbourne, I think we are now starting to produce a very rich and sustainable set of management principles that should hold us in good stead. One thing I'd like to mention too, for an audience for Pampa, is that in Melbourne we have made a strategic decision around training. I have an exceptional training editor on staff here, Colin McKinnon, who is leading a process in Melbourne that engages staff, talks about training needs analyses and reviews our performance. And what we have done as part of that is we've thought through, so what are the new training courses we should have? And now we have things like script writing, we have presentation to camera, we have training for photographers in still and moving images, and we have what I would call a coterie, a collection of courses that are more truly representative of the new media, while not ignoring some of the richness and the grittiness that we need to achieve for the print and the traditional media, such as war zone reporting and the risks, and of course legal reporting across all different platforms. So my sense of all of this is, and in talking to staff and engaging staff, is training can be the driver. Training can be the driver to really engage them, particularly when you ask your own staff, what are the courses we should be running and who should run them and what should we set out to achieve from them. So when you think about this, how do traditional journalists and how have traditional journalists responded to these set of challenges? What I would say is, and I can speak most with some authority about the staff at The Age, and I don't want to assume that I have knowledge of other papers or other parts of the media, but if I think about Melbourne, I think The Age is we're quite lucky in Melbourne in a sense. We have a collection of journalists that are among the most mature, some of the smartest thinkers, I think, in the industry. They set out to produce outstanding journalism now in a range of ways. And I think they are responding very, very well. If I had a sort of a summary point around that, I would say and now I think more broadly, in terms of the industry, I think some of the great opportunities are to make sure that we engage the great talents of people who've grown up in a print atmosphere with print traditions, that we engage them in the multimedia work. These people shouldn't be left behind at any point. They should be fully engaged. My imagining of a future includes those very talented journalists being capable across a whole set of different media, multi-skilled, confident and able to do things. We feel we're growing those people here in Melbourne very well. If I think of the work of Malcolm Maiden, if I think of the work of Adele Ferguson, if I think of the work of sports reporter Sam Lane, if I think of Tim in Canberra for us and Michelle Grattan in Canberra for us and others, what I am already seeing is reporting in print, blogging online, video reports quickly done and turned around, and of course a whole set of other creative outcomes that I think is starting to engage our audiences. And in one little aspect there too, just the other reflection is that I think that we have to be clear on our objectives. We have to be clear about volume of, for example, hits online versus the stickiness and the quality of that audience. What are we setting out to achieve? And I think The Age and Fairfax has always been very, very focused on the quality of the audience and retaining that audience, growing that audience and having higher impact over time. Thank you. One thing I would like to say, thinking more broadly, is I welcome the opportunity and I thank Pam for inviting me to take part in this process. What I would say is that when our industry does sit down and talk smartly and in a sophisticated manner about our challenges, and when we can share and better understand what the mutually beneficial outcomes could be, I think we grow. I think we grow as an industry, and I think we grow both within our country and internationally. I think this is our shared challenge. It's not a challenge for Fairfax and a challenge for News and a challenge for ABC. And I would set the challenge for all of us to say, what about making sure that we meet and discuss and we debate more vigorously the shared challenges we face, and in doing so and getting beyond some of the competitive issues, actually work through an Australasian solution that may even be world best.